some factors that could influence the length of an agreement on a rent to own. So what are some of the things that people could take into consideration, or things that could actually affect what length, right? The length of a rent to own could be anywhere from 1 to 3, but however, I don't think it's so standard. Everybody has what they want and maybe what they need. So people could go beyond or below that, right? So it all depends on you, the buyer or the tenant at that time, and the landlord or the seller to be. So however, this agreement is done between two people, the seller, which is going to be the landlord for the moment, and the tenant, which is going to be the buyer at the future date. So these two people have to be for this agreement to hold. So what could be some of those factors that could affect the decisions in what is the length for them to have in this contract? So you don't go beyond this length, so you can sell and I can become the homeowner. So the first thing is going to be negotiation, right? Like I said, two people have to be for these things to work. So the tenant and the landlord have to be in agreement to negotiate. So the length of a rent to own is often negotiated between these buyers to be and sellers to be, and both parties have to agree upon a certain option time. The option time just simply means what is the duration in which you as the tenant has to be able to rent and take care of every other thing to become a home buyer, and how much time can the seller give you to stay in their house, knowing that at the future date you're going to purchase and they don't have to look for a new buyer. Okay, so that's the negotiation. The second thing, or the second factor that could influence, is market condition. So the market condition at that time could play a role in determining what is the time for you, or what is the duration in which you guys are agreeing upon. So let's say the market condition or the real estate market at that time is very, very variable. So many people are out there looking for houses to buy, but there are very few houses to sell. And now you want to do a rent to own. So for the seller, they are not going to participate in that great market prices, because however, you're being locked into a rent to own, so they don't have options of so many people bidding and outbidding others, and then they ending up selling their house at a very high price, right? So that could come into consideration, and they could tell you, hey, with the market condition like this, I would love for us to agree upon maybe a year or a year and a half for you to be able to actually come and purchase this house, so I don't lose on all the great market conditions as of now. At least even if I don't get it now, I can get it in another time. But however, those things come into consideration. Okay, so if that happens, they might want to agree on a shorter period. So the seller might want to do a shorter period rather than giving the tenant a longer time for them to actually get their other things together, right? Maybe their credit or the down payment or the monies in order. So that could affect or influence the rent to own agreements or the rent to own agreement length. Okay, so the third thing that could actually affect this is the buyer's financial situation. So the buyer might come knowing that in the next year I won't be able to make up the down payments, I won't be able to secure the finances because I might not meet all the requirements that the lender needs. I might not have a good credit score, so I need more than 12 months to actually build my credit, right? Because remember, the better your credit, the better you're going to have that loan. Okay, so and the better the interest rate when you have good credit. So, however, if the buyer's financial situation is not the best as of that moment, and they anticipate that they're not going to be able to get the best still in the next year or two, they might agree to go for a longer time of option or longer duration to be a renter rather than just buying the house. However, if the seller sees with the buyer on these grounds and decide that's okay by me, I can wait for you for the next 3 years. I'm not in a hurry to sell my house. That still works, right? So if they decide and they agree upon these terms, then they can go ahead and actually go into an agreement. But if they don't, that means somebody is now willing to agree on the terms at that moment. Okay, so those things come into play. So the fourth thing that can influence the length or the duration of a rent to own is going to be the property consideration. So remember, one of the advantages was for the person or the tenant to test the property and actually have good experience, right? To see if they are willing to stay in this house for the longest of their life or for the number of years. Because of course, remember, loans mostly you might have to pay up to 30 years. If you decide to go for a shorter one, then that means you have to pay more money, okay? But however, if you decide a 30-year loan, that means you have to stay in that house for the next 30 years if you choose to, plus the number of years you've already been renting. So they want to make sure the property condition is the best for them, okay? At the time of buying, the buyer needs to assess whether it meets their needs and can impact and can which can also impact the duration of the agreement. So if it doesn't really meet their needs, however, they might decide I'm no longer interested, I no longer want to buy, and I don't know how it's gonna end. But however, the seller and the buyer, as long as you guys have everything written in the agreement, then that works, right? So no matter what you want to do, always weigh your options before you get into an agreement and ask questions in case you're unable to purchase a house, in case you default, what happens to me, right? So ask those questions to these to these landlords, and they will answer you. Or you guys will agree upon the terms in case something like that occurs. Okay, in case you're no longer satisfied with the property and you want to opt out of the agreement, what happens? So make sure you have clear agreements on such things before you go into tasting somebody's property to consider if it's okay for you or not, right? And the last one is going to be the seller's goal. So we talked about buyer's financial situation, which is almost like their own goal. So what does the seller has in mind? What is the goal of the seller? Does the seller want a short sale, or the seller is willing to wait for as much time and give the buyer as much time as they want? So if the seller's goals or motivations is to sell in a shorter period, of course they will want to go into an agreement that is short, right? Maybe a year or maybe a few months. However, it just depends on what the seller wants and if the buyer to be buyer agrees upon those terms, right? Some people might just need a few months to get everything together, maybe 6 months to get their credit done. They'll be able to get the finances and secure them as they need them to actually go for to buy this house, right? People have different uh, people are different, right? So not everybody is the same. Some people can quickly get these funds or raise these funds, and some people might take a longer time to raise this fund. But if you know you can raise the funds quickly, and the seller's goal is to sell their house quickly within a year, then actually you guys can agree on something within a year, because of course you know you can actually afford it before the year elapses or the period in which you guys agreed upon for you to be a tenant elapses. Okay, so take into consideration some of these factors before you agree upon how what is the length of time You are going to be a tenant and the seller is going to be your landlord. As always, my videos are for educational purposes only. Do your due diligence to research on each and every one of these things, and make sure going out there to get into this, you have a clear understanding of what you're getting yourself into. If you do not hesitate to get yourself a real estate attorney or a professional that can help guide you throughout this process. Stay safe and healthy. Don't forget to like, share. Uh, if you've not subscribed, please subscribe as well. And if you want to know more or just read um, some tips or guidance of how to become a homeowner, I do have a book. I'm going to be leaving the link in the description box below. Okay, feel free to request a copy to learn more. Thank you and stay safe out there.